Well, hello. With that shortened and abbreviated countdown, folks, my name is Charles Moon, sitting in for the great Scott Bauer, and today we're gonna talk about something fun. I've been highlighting this configuration in relation to stocks showcasing strength because people are always concerned, should I keep buying, when do I fade, when should I look for fades, and these indicators could give you a lot of texture and context in terms of timing, and that's going to help you out a ton in relation to your trade ideas. So welcome everybody, welcome. Do me a favor before we get started. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do hit that little bell notification. It will alert you anytime we go live. Smashing that like button also helps, but being active in the chat also helps. Let me know where you're checking in from. I am in finally beautiful weather, Colorado. I had spent the last week in Illinois, and I gotta say, Colorado made me soft because the humidity in Illinois was unbearable. It's 90 plus degree weather, 80 plus degree humidity. I don't know how people in the South do it, but man, God bless you. I like the mountain air. So quickly, let's get on to the 10-day EMA and 20-day SMA. What's really important here is that there is a very big difference between an EMA and SMA. Now, we've gone over those before. Now, can this be a possible crossover signal? Yes. They will show you the effectiveness of short-term strength relative to short-term trend. But these are essential trend indicators, and I want to break that down really quickly here. Now, when stocks continue to maintain, especially the 10 EMA, it's showcasing an extremely high level of demand. And that's really important. I'll show you a couple examples of stocks that have just been going through the roof here and holding on these levels. And some of these stocks, I want to show you, have broken down below the 10, but have pivoted near that 20. And again, the early warning signs are when stocks start to falter around these levels or trade under these levels. The trading strategies to potentially capitalize on these before the broader market reacts is essentially just being very aware of where the stock is relative to these indicators. So I got Gene checking in from Austin. Oh, Lord. Jay, I already know where you're checking in from. You had to endure that heat with me. Uh, what a name, Rocky Mountain Chainsaw. Hopefully, you're enjoying the beautiful weather like I am. I'm not going to ask why you're checking in from the pen, but glad to have you. We have the great Scott Bauer checking in as well. Randy from Tennessee. Gene from East Tennessee. What up? Hulk smash that like button. I love it. So let's get down to it. So this really effectively really the 10 EMA really helps us understand the depth of demand in the short term. Now, whenever we see, especially stocks that have been breaking down, start peaking above the short term 10 EMA, it could give us a little bit of guidance that the buyer demand or the trading sentiment around the stock is starting to change. And when it recovers above that 20 SMA on that follow through, this could be a really good indicator that we're ready to see either the stock or the stock market rally strong. Now, holding above the EMA is also really important. We call it riding the EMA. Now, I'm going to give you some really prime examples in just a second, but I just want to touch up on the 20 SMA. This is also going to be a very extremely critical price level to keep an eye on because once the stock loses the 10 EMA and then starts breaking down below the 20, usually if they've been strong performers over the last month, there's a bit of gapping or spacing between the 20 EMA and the 20 SMA, I'm sorry, and the 50 SMA. And that's usually this gap breakdown that we look for. And that's usually a beautiful profit pocket where a stock could slide or rally without much obstruction, without too much of a pivot point or a reference level. And that's really important as well, because that's what these indicators are. These indicators isn't just a mismatch or just throwing darts at a dartboard. It's giving us a real guidance in terms of sentiment and pricing activity in the short term for traders to take advantage of. Now, one of the most prominent configurations that I'm going to point out, which actually happened live when we had clients in town in Chicago, Illinois, but I had presented into my rooms, was this moment right here. Now, if you take a look, I have these green arrows that showcase the strength in the short term, right, downtrend, and how this has been a very strong and pivotal point for the stock, which is the Qs in this instance, to break down and reject from. And if I erase everything and once again highlight that moment of clarity, aka where I felt the market dynamics had changed, well, you could see we opened and jumped above these levels and immediately utilized it for support. And since that day, which is, I believe, was it 420? Oh no, I almost said it. 423, April 23rd. Look at where all my circles are being highlighted at. Now, there was a small moment where we lost it, but immediately recovered and immediately recovered. So, for those that are wondering, the blue dot that I'm circling at is the 10 EMA, and the white line or the dotted line is the 20 SMA and the 21 EMA. And if you notice, this very bullish market continues to remain and find support at these critical levels all the way up to new all-time, never seen before in the history of mankind highs. I wanted to point out a stock that's been extremely bullish, that's been kind of flying under the radar. Roblox. Now, RBLX or Roblox, but RBLX, since they broke out of their kind of consolidation phase here, you could just see the amount of times they have tapped on that 10 EMA and continue to rise. And in fact, the recent volatility brought the stock down straight to that white line, which is the 20 SMA, and since then has recovered and has been rebounding nicely, including today. They were on this morning's watch list. And so when we talk about the effectiveness of broad demand on a stock, if the trend can continue higher, this is always going to be the focal point that we have to keep a eye on. Now, if we actually look at a stock like AMD, which has been on a really nice bullish run, you could see that they have been really strong, not just at the 10, but they've had some pretty deep pullbacks to the 2021. And you say, how do we take advantage of this? Well, today, recognizing that it broke down below the 10 EMA could have led to a really nice short right at the open. That drop was around $4. And in turn, if we're looking to be a buyer, I have my eyes right here, right around 131. And if it doesn't hold 131, well, the likelihood of them actually breaking down towards 123 or 116 is now extremely high. More importantly, we have seen the nuance of consistency and trading behavior and demand in the stock. And so once it starts losing, right, what recent history has said, what price performance historically has said, that means there's been a shift in sentiment and buyer demand versus seller demand. And so we always talk about how do we get these um, visual representations of whether we need to be bullish or bearish. Well, long term, AMD right now is in a well-defined uptrend. We should be looking to buy deeper pullbacks. But in the short term, that doesn't mean that we can't short the stock, because obviously, if we're looking for a pullback as a buyer, the stock price has to come down. And as a short term trader, you're just looking for directional movement to take advantage of, to get in and out of quickly. And this is a great way of spotting these opportunities. Now, if this doesn't make sense, hopefully this follow up will. If you notice, what I'm going to highlight is these little boxes, and these boxes are what's known as gapping or spacing in between these moving averages. And what happens is that once we lose one of these layers, it's down to the next one. And so these are smaller profit pockets that we can look to take advantage of as a trader, a short term trader, and pinpoint successfully where these potential pivots could take place, so that we know where to actively manage our positions. Now, this works to the upside as well. A name like Palantir is really standing out to me today. And in fact, if you take a look here, Palantir just recently lost their 21, flashed down near the 50, and has now rallied back. And now that they're above these moving averages, there's just this little, what we would call the linear regression mean. But after that, the skies open up. And if you don't believe me, well, let's take a look on the chart to the left. If I pull this in a little bit more, if you notice, there's nothing that's standing in the way between now and the all time highs besides that linear regression mean. And that's really important to understand. So, what if I told you that a stock can move $5 without much obstruction and it's to the upside? How many of you would like that information? How many of you feel that information can help you with your analysis of trading? And if the answer is yes, then it's really imperative that you weigh, right, all of this information relative to the uh, daily chart information. By the way, these indicators are meant to be on the daily chart, and incorporate that into your trading. Now, I do that a lot for my Momo morning watch list, but this is a very prominent approach in my other program, which is the AI program. Now, that AI program, we're only taking swing trades. All the analysis is on the daily chart. And in fact, this is my AI configuration in terms of technicals and charting. And so, because of that, I have been able to hit a pretty high win percentage from swing trading. It's a lot different than day trading. I've had to hold overnight. I've had to hold it through the market volatility crash to the downside, the market rally to the upside. And we have been able to scale at around 70% win rate. So if you take a look, this was that 20-day SMA that we had talked about. But for those that have not partaken or seen what my AI um, program can do, I am hosting a webinar tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. Eastern. I would love for you folks, if you're not involved in the AI program, to stop by and say hello. Now, again, the proof is in the pudding. So, what I'm going to do is actually show you a lot of prime examples and actually pinpoint a few names I want you to look at for tomorrow as trading opportunities. But before we get into that, ladies and gentlemen, we want to share the word of the day. And the word of the day is going to be trend. Now, if you're new here, we do a word of the day because we do a drawing at the end for some prosperous swag. So if you want some free stuff, and who doesn't like free stuff, do me a favor, type of the word trend so that you could be entered and have your name on the wheel, and we'll spin it towards the end. For those that don't know, um, that's Thor. Beautiful Thor, handsome Thor, Jeff Lake's beloved pup. So you know, I wanted to take a look at ARM. Okay. So ARM was one of those names that I wanted to highlight because they're barely hanging on by a thread here at the 2021. Now, I would only be looking for a rebound in this name if it closes above this price level. So effectively, I'm looking for ARM to close above 147 half, 148 today. If they close below that level, that means they're closing below this moving average. And then that opens the door for them to potentially slide. That slide could be as low as $135. Now, if you think about that, we're trading at nearly 147. That's $12 downside. But tell me, folks, where do you see your next technical support level? I don't really see anything until we get to the 200 SMA, which is going to be a very pivotal level to keep an eye on here in the near term. So, this is one of those names that I want you to watch for and see where they close today. If they close below that level and they can't get back above tomorrow, meaning they get closed below 147 half and they can't get back above tomorrow, it would not surprise me at some point, either at the end of this week or early next week, that we could break down to 135. And respectfully, this market could react very bearish this week, as we have seen how the market is reacting to tariff news. Uh, President Trump just announced a 25% tariff effective August 1st for Japan and South Korea. The markets slammed to new lows on that news. And so, well, like, I don't know, if Trump announces 20% tariff against Cambodia, I don't think the markets are going to care too much. But if he announces that EU didn't come to a deal, we're now going to raise tariffs on EU or India or any other impactful country, um, that could have a really negative effect, albeit short term, on the markets, and that could help fuel that drive of ARM to the downside. Now, looking at possible opportunities tomorrow, this was one of those names that are on a make or break level. MRVL is another one as well. If you look at MRVL, now they haven't been the strongest bullish trending name, but you could see effectively how they have been bouncing at that 10 EMA. They even tried to bounce it until they closed below that level, and now they're in danger of losing that level. And MRVL is also another one of those stocks that has pretty wide open downside to 66. So if they end up closing below 72.50 and they can't get above that price tomorrow, as they say in my room, that's the FDJ. We got people that love to short in my room, and they call it the fade du jour. So we nicknamed it FDJ. This is an FDJ opportunity. Now, sequentially, if we're looking for plays to the upside, there are certain names that have shown some really positive depth and really look like they want to make a move. This is DoorDash. Now, DoorDash, as you could see, came really sharply off of their 52-week highs, but you could see today the low coincides exactly with that 10 EMA. And so far, the bounce has been, well, I don't know, $6. And the stock is up $5 while the markets are now down 463 points in the Dow, 180 in the Nasdaq, and 50 in the S&P 500. Now, it's not to say that every stock that bounces off the 10 EMA is going to be a great performer, but it should tell you how big of a standout DoorDash is, that they're up over 2% today while the markets are down. So that's, something that really stands out to me, at least in the near term. If you look at names like Affirm, which is another one that's up 2.25%, well, let's take a look. They too also just bounced off this little dot, In fact, they just got above the recent highs from last week. And as we speak, they're making new highs for the day. Again, another stock that's up 2% plus on a day where the market is down nearly 1% across the board. And what's the coinciding factor? Well, the stock is above the 10 EMA. It tickled the 10 EMA today and has completely pivoted off that level. And you can see the dynamics where AMD lost that 10 EMA and started breaking down towards that 20 SMA. And these stocks that held found buyer demand to bring it up even under the uncertainty of the markets and the overall price action. A name that you folks may not be familiar with, but has made substantial gains in recent months is ARQQ. It's a quantum play, and some of you know these quantum names like QUBT, QBTS, but the most popular one is IONQ. Well, you can see that this stock is possibly meeting its top here. Lower high reversal. It's now getting trapped underneath the 10 EMA and it's barely hanging on. So if it loses that level, well, look at what your downside is. We're talking about a drop somewhere from 32 half down to 26, perhaps even as low as 25, or in the whole case of a home run scenario, down to the 200-day moving average at $18. $18 is almost a 50% haircut. So this is really important for us to understand. Someone just said in the chat, which I love, the trend is your friend until it isn't. And this 10 EMA, 20 SMA are good barometers. For me, the 20 SMA is that last line of defense before it really showcases a lot of weakness and that progressive, extended, magnetized pullback. So, this is just something that we just kind of have to keep in mind. And really, when you cross reference it with, you know, a ton of different stocks. I don't know. I'm sure people have known how crazy Coinbase is. Coinbase, basically sniffed on that 10 EMA and immediately rebounded. Look at your most bullish names that you could think of. STX is one of them. People don't talk much about Seagate, but this stock has been on an incredible run. And just like RBLX, what do you notice, folks? Immediate rebounds and holds at the 10 EMA. One of the names, folks, that I actually went on TV and talked about today was Netflix. Look at how this stock has performed going into earnings. As you can see, once again, riding along that 10, holding along that 21. Look at where they're trying to hold and pivot and reverse right now. This is really important to recognize. And so when the stock starts breaking out in trend, you'll start understanding that if they don't maintain these levels, there is fallout to be had. If you look right here, this is the moment that Netflix lost the 10 EMA and the 20 SMA. And from that breakdown point, well, it basically went underneath $1,000 and dropped down to $857 in a week and a half. And when it recovered above these levels, well, it went from 960 to 1160 in a matter of 2.5 to 3 weeks. So, find your names that you like, find the names that you're looking into, and I'm going to leave you with two new ones. CRWV, which is a very popular new name, and sure enough, their indicators are starting to showcase. Look at where they've been holding the last 2 days. Okay. Notice on this entire run up, they were staying above that 10 EMA. And the moment they lost it, that's when the stock started getting shaky. But now that they're holding these levels, they're trying to rally back. And Circle. Charlie Romeo, Charlie Lima. Now, this one hasn't had the 20 SMA yet, but it does have actually it does. The 20 SMA just showed up along with the 21 EMA. But look at how it's been kind of struggling to get above the 10 EMA, and today it got above it and utilized it for support. Another stock, by the way, somehow up 7%, up $13 while the market is down. And this stock has gotten beaten up over the last 2 weeks. But notice that the three strong performing names that are trading at or near the highs all had something in common today. They bounced pretty hard off that 10 EMA. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is your final call for the word of the day. Once again, let me pull up the handsome Thor. He's almost as handsome as his daddy, Jeff Laker. And, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that translation of the 10 EMA on the daily chart, that 20 SMA on the daily chart makes a lot of sense. Is there anybody confused in the chat? Do me a favor and let me know. But if it makes a lot of sense, just type in makes sense, sure thing, thumbs up, thank you, whatever, just so that I know that we're on the same page, everybody. Yeah, trend is their friend. Yeah, so this is a really important dynamic. And again, the AI traders in here, they'll explain the same thing. They'll tell you exactly. I'll tell you right now, I'm actually looking for a trade on a stock that needs to pull back to that 10 EMA, and I'm looking to be a buyer there. Now, I won't disclose it because that's, privy to the AI clients, but this is something that we look for foundationally. And I just wanted to share you something because this isn't something that I'm just throwing out there. This is something that I'm utilizing on a daily basis, which has helped me be very successful so far in the year of 2025. I appreciate you, Kent. Craig Mormon said handsome. I think he meant to say trend, unless he's talking about me. And then, Greg, wow, thank you. I appreciate it. Dorothy, the idea here, if you think about it, and I'm just going to point this out really quick on RBLX. The importance of this level is that this is now coinciding with a price level that the market participants, this isn't just Wall Street, this is retail traders like yourself and myself, are focusing on to potentially take a trade. The reason why we will look at that level is that history in terms of reoccurrence has said, well, when it comes down to this price, the stock likes to go up. And so if history is continually repeating itself, well, then we have no other choice but to respect the historical aspect and price performance. And again, history is going to continue to repeat until it doesn't. Then, if it loses that floor, this is what we would say is your safety net. So think of this as being in an elevator, and then the bottom of the elevator just drops, and then you fall. But there's some magical safety net one floor below you to just hold you down, just to hold you up and make sure you don't go crashing down. Now, if that safety net, which is now known as the 20 SMA, where that right circle is, well, if that loses, that's as if you landed on that safety net, it was holding, and then it tears apart, and then you go plummeting down. Not to your death, but just, you're moving on down. And then you're moving on down to what the next floor would be. Now, for those that don't understand, this is a representation of buyer demand. If buyer demand remains strong, they're only looking for minimal pullbacks because in anticipation, they believe that the stock is going to rebound. But if the weakness is sustainable and the weakness is far more prevalent, and buyers are either exhausted, meaning, oh man, this is too high, I can't buy it anymore, or they're like, I don't like how things are looking, I'm not willing to buy here, but I'm willing to buy here, then we understand the laws of attraction and magnetism. Again, if you understand trading, a lot of it is patternism, a lot of it is reoccurring patterns, as they say, or patternism, but it's effectively always going to be at a point of reference. And these are extremely popular indicators that a lot of technical indicator based traders will be looking at. And that's why these stocks could get very dynamic at these price levels because a lot of liquidity and interest will start trading once we get to that price. All right, everybody. So let's now, as we are getting in pretty late to the show, let's now bring in handsome Thor. Bring in the Market Minds wheel. All right, everybody. Good luck. Good luck. Today's winner is going to be. Uh, oh, good. Oh, so close, Ken. I was rooting for you. Kevin 9319 is our winner today. Kevin, do me a favor, reach out to Prosper Swag at prospertrading.com with your information. We'll make sure to get something sent out to you. Yeah, my man Kevin. When you realize that you understand trading, be afraid, be very afraid. Well, and then be happy when you count up your money because honestly, technical based trading, folks, it is the way to go. It is a technically driven market. Why not incorporate it and, get on board with the rest of the markets? And with that, folks, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your time and participation. It's a great show always. Hopefully, that you folks did enjoy the information that was shared. And again, if you got some time and you have a little bit more interest in how I teach and how my program is, do me a favor, join me in my webinar, my AI webinar. That'll be tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Do me a favor. I think there's a link, something like that. You could sign up then. If not, just call in to Prosper Trading or go to our website. And again, if you need our phone number listed in the upper left hand corner, 312-376-2214, and you could register there. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm out of here. Peace and love. Have a great trading week, everybody.